Welcome back into NFL in a Flash here on Sports Radio, WNML.com. Week 7 of the NFL season's in the books, and Joel Silverberg and I, Eric Kane, are going to tell you all about it. Joel, Tennessee, they were sitting in a good spot, leading the division, coming off back-to-back big wins over Jacksonville and then Philadelphia. Since then, they've lost 3 in a row, and kind of an ugly ending to a pretty good game for the Titans in the second half over in London against the Chargers. They go down. They come within a point, scoring a late touchdown from VFL Luke Stalker. And then head coach Mike Vrabel likes to go for 2. Do you fault him for going for 2, and do you have more of a problem with going for 2 or the play calling in that?
I don't have as much of an issue with going for 2, especially now that an extra point's backed up to a 33-yard field goal. I still think you make it with Ryan Succop from that range, but I had more of an issue with the play call. I would have liked to have seen something where Mariota could have been a little bit more mobile. The Chargers took away both of the flats immediately. The next option was the slant. The play was blowing up the middle. Mariota had somebody breathing down his neck, so he has to get rid of the ball quickly. So it may not even been so much the play call was the issue, but the execution. I probably would have liked to have seen maybe a rub play where you've got Corey Davis or somebody a little bit more sure-handed going out into the flat. And so I didn't have as much of an issue with the decision. I thought the play call didn't really give your best playmaker an opportunity to make a play. I don't like the empty 5 set back because it shows plain as day that you're going to pass the football unless they were going to try, especially after the penalty when it moved half distance to the goal. It's only 1 yard. I would have considered a quarterback sneak. Mariota's 6'4", just see if you can get him to push him into the end zone. But yeah, I'm not going to fault Vrabel for trying to go out and win a football game.
Mike Vrabel, he rolled the dice a number of times already this season, and that game against Philadelphia in particular, he was forced to go for it on 4th down a couple of times in that overtime drive, which they were successful in. And then he elects to go for the win, goes for 2. It pays off. So if you're a Titans fan, I feel like if you're with him then, you have to be with him now, take the good with the bad. But I'm more or less with the play calling as well. I'm more conservative. I would have kicked the PAT, but if you're not going to, especially after that defensive holding penalty, I felt like, just hand the ball off to Derrick Henry or a quarterback sneak.
Well, with the way that the game had progressed thus far, Los Angeles' offense really hadn't done a whole lot against you besides 2 big busts in coverage, but you're 1 bust in coverage away from losing the game in overtime anyway. So you're giving up a 75-yard touchdown pass on the Chargers' first play from scrimmage on offense, and then a 55-yard touchdown pass later on. Los Angeles had 6 red zone points the entire game. Titans held them to 2 field goals. The Titans had 5 red zone possessions and only 2 touchdowns. So you had your chances to win the game. The interception right before the end of the first half, which I think was a bad play call, trying to throw a zone when you've got a defensive end reading on that jet read option and then spying back to watch Mariota, the play never had a chance. So I think really the play calling in red zone type situations is what really did Tennessee in, and then you're trying to make up for that at the end by going for 2 instead of kicking the extra point.
Yeah, Marcus Mariota, I feel like, played a pretty good ball game. He's been inconsistent at times. I thought that was probably his worst play of the day. I thought he was pretty accurate. The running game improved. Titans offense showing some life, but losers of 3 straight. They once were leading the division. Now Jacksonville, they're stumbling their feet as well. And now the 0-3 Texans, who the Tennessee's already beaten this year, number 1 sole possession on top of the AFC South with a quarterback that has a punctured lung or something like that. But, this AFC South, kind of 6-7 weeks into the season, it's still anybody's division.
Yeah, it really is. The Colts get a big win over Buffalo, so they're 2-5, so they're only 2 games out of first place. And when you look at it, even though they've got a couple of division losses already, but for Tennessee, these losses, especially to Buffalo and Los Angeles, are so detrimental because Houston and Jacksonville have already played Dallas and New England. You have to play both of those teams still. So you've got some tough games coming up. Your gauntlet's coming up before things lighten up a little bit again with some more division games later on in the season. So Tennessee had some opportunities to really take advantage of Jacksonville and Houston stumbling out of the gates, and they didn't do it.
Stay in the AFC, a big trade from an AFC team to an NFC team. It's a complete disaster in Oakland right there in the first year for John Gruden and the rebuild. He wants to get younger, but he trades away a 24-year-old receiver who was one of the top 10 receivers in the National Football League just as early as 2 years ago, and Amari Cooper, the standout from Alabama. And, it just hasn't really fit in that offense this year. Can't really get him going, of course, coming off a letdown year last year, but he's a number 1 type receiver that Dallas surely needed.
Yeah, and Dallas needed some big play receivers. You like what they have, the pieces out there, because you have your running back in Ezekiel Elliott. You have a quarterback that knows the system with Dak Prescott. You've got a slot possession guy in Cole Beasley that can help make plays for you, but they needed a number one wide receiver, so that could be beneficial for Dallas in the long run. Now, if Amari Cooper looks more like last year's Amari Cooper, that's not going to work out for Dallas very well. But I think with what they were lacking on offense and a big play weapon, they needed to take a risk on that. It wasn't doing anything in Oakland, so it sounds like Amari Cooper wanted out, and it sounds like Dallas was able to give him that option.
Did Dallas give up too much in the first round pick?
Probably, I think, with especially because after watching what he did last year, you could say, well, that's an anomaly, or we know how to use this guy. So it depends. It could work out that way. Right now, if I'm in that front office, I'm probably not giving up a first-round pick, especially when I see the success that my team has had in the last couple of weeks, with the big win over Jacksonville, and still seeing that the division's wide open. But you do have to take a step forward at some point. So you're kind of rolling the dice here. So it's high risk, high reward. But we'll see what happens. Dallas can still potentially, you could probably make the argument that they're a good enough team to win the division without him, but I don't see how, if Dallas doesn't win the division, how you can point to Amari Cooper and say, yeah, that trade's the reason that we didn't get to the playoffs.
The Raiders, on the other hand, now have 3 first-round picks heading into the 2019 NFL Draft. So you deal Khalil Mack out of the way, you're struggling, but a lot of exciting times ahead for John Gruden and the Raiders as they make the move to Las Vegas. Time for our playmaker of the weekend. Joel, I'm going to go with Dion Lewis, the Titans. 91 yards off 13 carries. I think he had 64 yards receiving. Tennessee's offense continued to get better, show some life in the run game, something we haven't seen all year long. So Dion Lewis, he got me 23 fantasy points in one of my leagues, so that's always a good thing. So Dion Lewis is my playmaker of the weekend. What about you?
I would probably go with Todd Gurley. Another 3-touchdown performance. The Rams are 7-0 now. You do it against a division opponent, and it's not like it was anything that we haven't seen from Gurley before already, but a guy that consistently continues to just put up big numbers in a big way. Easily one of the best running backs in the league. Still really young, where we're seeing this trend of young running backs just continuing to dominate and do it over and over again. He's been fantastic. The Rams have been fantastic on both sides of the ball. And now that they've got all these offensive weapons, they've got a solid defense, you really have to like what Los Angeles is doing right now.
Tennessee Titans are off next week, much deserved, or not really much deserved, a much needed off week to kind of get out some kinks, but there'll be plenty of football next week, week 8 of the NFL season, and Joel Silverberg and I, Eric Kane, will be right back here on NFL in a Flash next week to recap it all. This has been Sports Radio WNML's NFL in a Flash.